Welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely pumped to have you here because honestly, we're looking at something pretty extraordinary. Usually, when we dig into texts, we're poring over pages and pages of dense material, right? But today, we're looking at exactly 11 words. Yep, just 11. Excerpts from The Liberator of Jerusalem, the warrior who freed Jerusalem. As someone who geeks out over how information is structured, I find this incredibly cool. We're going to treat this tiny, super compact text like a linguistic artifact. We're going to put it under the microscope and see just how much meaning, identity, and action can be crammed into one solitary sentence. Let's get into it. I want you to pause for a second and really think about this. What is the true rhetorical power hidden within these 11 words? It is honestly mind-blowing when you stop and consider the sheer narrative weight packed into this tiny excerpt. We don't have chapters of backstory here, zero lists of character traits. The author stripped away absolutely everything extraneous, and what we're left with is this pure, concentrated drop of story. Every single syllable was chosen for maximum impact. And to really get that, we have to look past the brevity and figure out how these specific words work together to paint such a massive picture. Section 1, the weight of a title. Okay, let's dive right into this. To really appreciate this text, we have to start with the premise that every single word carries profound thematic weight. When a text is this short, literally nothing is an accident. The author isn't just describing a person, they're building a legend. And they do it not by giving us some normal name, but by instantly elevating the subject to a title, the Liberator of Jerusalem. Just let those words hang in the air for a second. Notice the capitalization, the quotation marks. This isn't a casual description. It's presented as the foundational work itself, the actual source our excerpt is pulled from. By framing them as the Liberator, the text totally strips away any ordinary, everyday human identity. No first name, no surname, their entire existence and legacy are completely consumed by this one monumental act. They are, simply and absolutely, the Liberator. Section 2, defining the Liberator. Let's isolate this word for a minute and unpack what it actually signals to us. The text explicitly defines its main character as the Liberator, which is the identity assigned to the subject who brings about freedom. Now, the absolute key takeaway here is the inherent authority and purpose baked right into that noun. A liberator is never passive, right? A liberator is a catalyst. The word itself implies that a state of captivity or oppression had to exist before they showed up, and through sheer agency they broke that state. The text doesn't even need to explain the backstory of the conflict because the word liberator does all the heavy lifting for us. It sets up an instant dynamic of before and after, of bondage and ultimately freedom. Section 3, the setting, Jerusalem. Now, obviously, a liberator needs a place to liberate, and the text points us to a highly specific location as the focal point for this freedom. What's really fascinating here is how the text zeroes in on Jerusalem as the sole object of the subject's actions. It's the singular destination of the freeing action. Notice it doesn't say the liberator of the people or the liberator of the nation. Nope, it anchors the action to a specific named geography, Jerusalem. By tying the act of liberation exclusively to this one place, the text elevates the setting itself. The city isn't just a backdrop anymore, it's the ultimate prize. It's the exact arena where our subject's identity is fully realized and locked in forever. Section 4, the warrior archetype. Moving into the second half of our 11-word source text, we see a really interesting shift in focus. The text reveals the specific method and the archetype used to describe exactly how this individual pulled off the liberation. And this brilliantly illustrates the contrast. We've got the liberator on one side and the warrior on the other. The text is inherently equating the concept of a savior with an agent of war. Think about it. Liberator is a title of outcome, right? It tells us the result, which is freedom. But warrior is a title of method. It tells us exactly how that outcome happened. It wasn't through careful diplomacy. It wasn't a peaceful transition of power. By explicitly calling them the warrior, the text is telling us flat out that the path to liberation was paved with martial force. The savior and the fighter are literally one and the same. Section 5, freedom through conflict. And that brings us to the climax of our analysis. Let's see how this builds and synthesize how the text links the act of freeing directly to this martial identity. Just look at the cascading logical sequence of events implied strictly by that final 6-word subtitle, the warrior who freed Jerusalem. Step 1, a warrior exists. The martial agent enters the scene. Step 2, the act of freeing takes place. The warrior exerts force to create a change in reality. And step 3, Jerusalem achieves liberation. The location receives the final outcome of that action. It is a flawless, self-contained narrative arc delivered in just 6 words. The text creates an unbreakable chain of cause and effect. Without the warrior, there is no freeing, and without the freeing, Jerusalem is not liberated. Conflict is presented as the absolutely essential mechanism for freedom. So what does this all mean? We are left with one big provocative question. Why does the text focus entirely on these powerful titles, warrior, liberator, rather than revealing a specific name? Seriously, ponder that for a second. By purposely withholding a common human name, the text elevates the subject from a mere historical figure into this timeless mythic archetype. A name just belongs to one person in one specific era, but a warrior and a liberator, those belong to legend. It is a masterful use of rhetoric, and it proves that sometimes what a text actively chooses to leave out is just as powerful as the 11 words it chooses to include. Thank you so much for exploring this wild linguistic puzzle with me. Keep asking questions, keep looking closely at the structures around you, and I really hope this explainer left you wanting to dig even deeper.